Колеги, будемо починати? Думаю, що вже всі зайшли.
Good morning, dear colleagues. We are glad to see you here at our event of the New Europe Center. At our discussion today, we are going to speak about attitudes towards European integration in the south of Ukraine. First of all, I would like to correct myself. The south is the region that has many varieties. This is not something one. This is a broad discussion, and I'm really glad that today we were joined by our speakers who have different views at different levels, and they are going to share their opinion about what is going on in the south of Ukraine. I'm Kateryna Zarembo, Deputy Director of the New Europe Center, and we are speaking about the results of our trip to Odesa and Kherson, and at the end of September, we held several public discussions with participation of Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Ambassador of Latvia to Ukraine, Juris, Poikāns, and together with our colleague Litra, Senior Research Fellow of the New Europe Center, we held the survey. So we held it in order to find out the views of the residents of Odesa and Kherson's regions, and our visits show. And we traveled before to Kharkiv, and we plan other trips. So there is a request for such discussions in the regions, and also in Kiev there is a request for such discussions. And we are really glad that you joined us, and we thank those who watch us online. And I also want to note that this paper was prepared in the framework of Engage program financed by USAID and due to PACT in Ukraine, and we are thankful to USAID and PACT in Ukraine. And also I would like to stress that this discussion paper is open for your comments. We are really ready to make changes to this paper. That's why we've gathered here today. With this, I would like to give the floor to Litra, Senior Research Fellow at the New Europe Center, in order to share our insights, how the European integration is seen in these regions.
Odessa is a diverse city as well, and they speak various languages sometimes. So, first of all, it was interesting to be there again and recall how was it back in 2016-15 when we were last time in Odessa and Kherson. And I'd like to mention that first what made us question, I mean, where in which direction Odessa goes, is that the public support for European integration changed very much for the last 2 years. And that is a question maybe we can discuss for the debate. For instance, if we look at its rating group survey last year, when we see that in Odessa Oblast, we have 50% of population against the European integration, and 24, supporting European integration in Odessa. The rest of them are calling themselves neutral, which is also something to discuss. And comparing these numbers, they are pretty much the same with Kharkiv, where 49% of the residents are against European integration. But let's not forget that Kharkiv Oblast is bordering with Russia, so it's somehow different context, geographic context, I mean. That's one question. And when we speak about South, we mean Odessa many times, but we also look at other regions, Kherson, Nikolaev, which are also part of the South, but have somehow different attitudes actually towards the European integration. For instance, if we look at the Kherson region, Oblast, when we see that 36% are against and 43% are in favor. So two regions which are basically next to each other, almost next to each other, but have such a difference in approaching and in basically receiving the European, perceiving the European integration. Just to remind that back in 2016, there were 40% people in Odesa region, Odesa Oblast, who were supporting European integration. So basically, over virtually 1.5 years, Odesa lost some 16% of support for European integration. That's something interesting we noticed, and there are many explanations for this. Some say that Odesa after 2014 was feeling unsafe security-wise, and they needed EU in order to balance the influence of Russia. Now they don't feel this threat from the side of Russia, and therefore the, let's say, the interest in balancing the local, somehow the local balance of power is less. That might be true, but I think there are also some other arguments which we hear in Odesa. First of all, we noticed that sometimes people look at European Union in tandem with NATO. And that is something we need still to work on with communication. I mean, because they understand that these organizations are different, but they think that Ukraine could integrate, for instance, into EU only if it integrates in NATO, which is not true. Also, we've noticed this attitude of Odesa is a state-in-state, sort of, where there are a lot of groups of influence. They are taking decisions in fact, and the officials are only part of this, let's say, scheme, but they are not really the one who decides on this. So and most of these groups, actually, what's interesting, they do not make their choice part of the public agenda. So they do not say they're in favor of EU, against the EU. We are dealing with Odesa, and that's what we do. Some interesting trend which we observed both in Odesa, Kherson, and also Kharkiv is that local authorities are almost all the time blaming for all the evils the central authorities in Kiev. So everything what happens good is because of local administration, and everything what happens bad comes from Kiev. This is also something to discuss, but this is the perception at the local level. And here I make actually another link with the perception of the EU integration, because many people said in Odesa and Kherson that their disappointment into the EU integration comes partly from the fact that they are somehow disappointed with central authorities promoting European integration. For instance, President Poroshenko did not deliver on this or that. And he is associated with the EU choice in Ukraine, and therefore a certain disappointment in a certain political figure translates in a disappointment in European integration issues. And I think this has to be made very clear that these issues have to be separated from my perspective. What's interesting about elections also is that people in Odesa think, opinion leaders think that all the candidates, the main candidates, let me put it like this, running for president in Ukraine, are not going to focus on European integration issues in these regions. So they are not going to mention European integration as part of their agenda for presidential elections. That's the belief at the local level. And moreover, European integration is not an issue in Odesa when making a choice for elections. That's very important, because we asked people, like, is it European integration something you think about when you choose your candidate or you choose your party. They say actually no in Odessa and actually yes in Kherson. That's a very interesting difference. And they also add that for us, the real, marker for making a difference between the candidates will be their ability to agree on a consensus regarding the war in the east of Ukraine. So those candidates who will be able to propose a consensus regarding the war in the east of Ukraine will have higher chances. Let's put it like this: will have higher chances to get elected in Odessa region. I think this is important. The last point. Maybe I exhausted my time. We have a lot to say actually, so that's why. That's why we prepared also this paper, because we understand we won't be able to discuss all the issues during this debate. Last point I wanted to mention is the discussion about neutralists, because there is a trend also in Kharkiv, in Odessa, partly in Kherson, that more people are becoming neutral. So we don't want Ukraine to be pro-European, we don't want Ukraine to be pro-Russia, we want to be neutral. And this is also a phenomenon which we need to understand, because I had the impression that quite often people are saying neutral but mean something else, or are saying pro-Ukraine but mean something else as well. When we asked, what do you mean when you say pro-Ukraine people? So they say, these are pro-EU people by default. Okay, so can one person in Odessa, for instance, be pro-Ukraine but not pro-EU? Well, not really. I mean, that's also, from my perspective, a little bit of sad conclusion, because someone who is pro-Ukraine cannot be necessarily only pro-Ukraine and not pro-EU. And this is something as well which made me somehow impressed, surprised from this perspective. Finally, here's my last point. I'd like to say that there are positive associations also with the EU in the region. This is, first of all, the funding of EU and cooperation with the universities, the visa-free travel, and the reforms which were promoted with the support of the EU, such as open registers, for instance. There are some other issues which were touched upon quite often, like 2nd of May, but I'm not going to go into this, because I think Zoya Kazanzhy and other other speakers will touch upon this. Thank you.
Дуже дякую, Лео. Буквально декілька слів, які
So several words I would like to say about our conclusions, what we've noted about Odessa, and about this so-called neutral status. Maybe it is connected with economic relations and trade, because Odessa is mostly the city of entrepreneurs, and mostly people told us about this during the interviews. And if we look at the geographic division of export and import, we will see that, for example, top 9 directions for export for Odessa. If we look at figures, 550 million comes to the region that are not supported by Russia, or India, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Russia is an important partner, but the turnover is 5.5 less. So they trade not so much with Russia or European Union. They trade more with other countries. Also, transport connections does not provide for European integration, and they do not have low-cost airlines there. And in order to travel to EU country, they should travel to Chesnau or to Lviv, and it provides some isolation in Odessa. And in Kherson, the situation is different. So they send several wagons of goods in a day. And at the same time, they have good communication, transport communication with Poland. And so in Kherson, they cooperate with the EU more. And also, I would like to tell you about the difference in security issues. And in Odessa, we found out that the conflict in the east, Russian aggression in the east, it is not perceived as a threat to the security of Odessa region. And Transnistria is perceived as a threat because there are Russian troops, but they see the threat at the western border. So in Kherson, they face different situation there. They sharply feel this presence of Russian troops in Crimea, and there is an administrative, there is a contact line there. So if there will be changes in Kherson, this will be a positive example for Crimea about how Ukraine moves forward. Also, we should remember about civil society. We were shocked by the news of this week, the death of Kateryna Gazook. She is one of the well-known representatives of Kherson region. The situation is really difficult with security in the east and not only, or in the south and not only in other cities. So there were 14 attacks on activists, and this is not well covered by the media, not even in Odessa. It happens so that public sector is really developed after 2014, but still it is not perceived by Odessa people as they do not perceive that they represent them. It is isolated. So there was no proper resonance and no proper support for these activists in Odessa. And in Kherson, the situation is quite different. We saw the action of solidarity. There were billboards in the city who ordered Kateryna Gazook, and these billboards were provided by local entrepreneurs for free. But we cannot speak about overall support everybody for one. In case of attack on public activists in the country, I saw statistics yesterday about 55 cases of attacks on activists starting this year. So this is 55 cases. Also, we had an impression that there is a positive action of the EU mission in Odessa, and EU AM mission is there. So one of the priorities of them is to work with the civil society in order that different groups, that they didn't have some forceful actions in order to avoid any forceful actions and avoid the victims. So how to speak about European integration in Odessa for population of the region is it is perceived as something vague. And in Odessa we were asked, some people asked us, what will I have if I support European integration? What benefits will I have? People want to know about it, and we should speak about exact numbers, about examples, about successful exporters, successful farmers. We also saw, and for us in Odessa and in Kherson and in Kharkiv and in Kherson, we saw that the programs of Horizon 2020, the programs like this provided good impression, and people want to participate in Erasmus+. So we should spread the information about these programs, how to reach results. And I would like to end by saying that we, as an organization that is based in Kiev, we had some concerns, because when we came and we spoke about European integration, we feared negative attitude. And we were concerned that maybe some people will be really skeptical, but the situation was good for us. They asked us to come again, and so This is the task for the Ukrainian power and for civil society institutions and to the experts, foreign experts, to provide proper information to the region about the European integration. Now the floor is given to Yuri Poikāns, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Latvia to Ukraine.
What is the difference between South and west of Ukraine?
When you look at Kharkiv and Odessa, maybe I will put Kherson a bit aside. I think these conceptually both have been in a way problematic regions when we look at the issues of European integration. And I think reasons for that are very simple. Let's say my capital, Riga, like Odessa, has been largely built during the times of the Russian Empire. It's a lot of historical connections. Kharkiv, like Leo said, has a physical border with Russia. When you have 35 kilometers till Belgorod, obviously you have a lot of interethnic marriages, a lot of common stories, Second World War. So as a result, I was not surprised to learn what is written in the report, that there are very different opinions in both cities. And actually I want to congratulate you on the report. I think it's everything is accurately fixed. So it's true that we cannot put Kharkiv, Odessa in the same perspective and context like Lviv. So that was obviously clear before the beginning. I think that at the same time, why popularity rate of European integration is dropping, let's say in Odessa and in Kharkiv, I again completely agree here with Leo. I think this is largely connected with the perception of the central government. And this is what happened in my country. Usually when you had more popular government, you had always more support for the European Union. So people were probably inadvertently but blaming the European Union for many issues where the central government probably should be blamed. And why is it? It's again, I think, deeply rooted in general in the attitude towards this government, which came into power after 2014, because let's be realistic, Maidan was perceived very differently in different parts of Ukraine. And there are always huge expectations from every revolution. And I believe also you would agree that many people in Ukraine would expect more when it comes to the field of justice, would expect more when it comes to persecuting some individuals. So there are always high expectations. And I think people in Kharkiv and in Odessa wanted to give the chance to the new government, but actually when you don't see a lot of positive developments, always in those problematic regions, disillusionment will always become faster. Let's say in Lviv, anything what happened in Kiev, people can be critical of what's happening in Kiev, but at the end of the day, they in general support the foreign policy direction, they like visa-free regime, they have a lot of low-cost airlines which have come to the city, so even being critical of the government, they don't challenge, let's say, the foreign policy orientation. And when you look at Odessa and Kharkiv, in a way, people start, maybe this is wrong, but they associate something what's going on in your country with the perceived foreign policy direction. Whether it's right or wrong, this is a matter of discussion. One thing that I noticed more in Odessa than in Kharkiv, what you already mentioned, it's, I think, when people were questioning about the European Union, they were asking much more concrete questions than in Kharkiv. Let's say when I said that Latvia is paying €1 to the overall budget of the EU but receives 4 back, I was a bit surprised that it was caught up by almost everyone. So it was told, you see that if they, and I was trying to tell more that the European Union is not about paying just €1 and getting €4 back, but this is about improving your justice system. This is about avoiding war on the territory of Europe, because I was trying to explain that the EU in general is a peace project, that you don't have war between Germany and France and Germany and Poland. And it seemed to me that this was not so interesting for people sitting there. It was very much perceived from a pragmatic point of view. And again, my conclusion is that probably we need, yes, more seminars trying to explain probably what I heard in Odessa, the very essence of the European integration. So this is a cultural union, it's a civilizational union, so it's based on the same values, because what I felt in Odessa, this is perceived much more from pragmatic point of view, what will I get from that? Not so much what I will do for the state, how the state will improve, and we should take it into account. And then I come to the point what Leo was saying, that in Odessa you have more feelings than in Kharkiv that this is a state within the state, due to its own identity in a way, due to its own geography in a way, due to its own specific history with Russia. Because when you look, let's say, at the opera, how the city developed within a couple of centuries, so it was really probably golden age before the First World War. So the city has, and it's also very multi-ethnic diverse in a way. There was a very good article by Tom Deval and Balazs Jarabik explaining what's going on in Bessarabia, so you can apply it to Odessa as well. So it's a very mixed identity at the end of the day, and people can feel at the same time both being Ukrainians, being Odessites, and at the same time mentally closely linked to Russia as well. That's why people probably will always be more skeptical to what the central government is telling in general. Concerning neutrality, I think it can be both, what Leo was saying. One thing is probably people are hiding their real attitude when it comes towards Russia. But at the same time, I have met people who are saying we would support neutrality because the first people understand that there is a war going on against Russia. So I believe no one seriously discusses the issue of the Eurasian Economic Union as such. If you look at opinion polls, 8 to 10% are supporting that. But at the same time, Europe seems at the same time also very complex and diverse. So I understand there might be a segment of people at first who feel themselves being neutral between these two blocks. And at the same time, I believe more you go to the east and to the south, more willingness to find a compromise with Russia you find as well. So I believe some people perceive neutrality in a way as a finding some kind of a compromise with Russia at the end of the day, coming to the conflict in Donbas. Not realizing that it might not be true, but it's again the question of perceptions. The fact that there are different opinions on Kherson and Odessa, I think they are not surprising because you find very much the same situation in Kharkiv. When you have Poltava Oblast, you have Sumy Oblast. So these regional identities can differ very much at the same time within a very short geographical distance. In general, I think that obviously the central government in Kiev should pay more attention to those regions in Ukraine's east and south. This is what Nova Europa is doing. That's why I welcome these trips, and I believe we should have more of them. And I believe more EU officials, more EU states officials definitely should come to these cities and regions and explaining how diverse and complex the European Union is. Thank you.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. We also felt from various sources, from various people, this perception that they felt abandoned. There is lack of justice against corrupt officials, and of course more attention to regions should be paid. I would like to give the floor to David Stulik, press officer of Delegation of the European Union to Ukraine. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to ask you, we see the diametrical change and fall or decline in support to Euro integration in Odessa Oblast. 16% of support is lost. Why this trend?
Відповідно на це питання, хочу зробити таку сенсаційну заяву.
Before answering the question, I would like to make a declaration. I know why there is a difference between Kherson and Odessa. We work with Kherson mass media. We have been working since 2016, and in Odessa only from 2017. Here you see my colleague from Internews, course, we have been working in 16 regions, and we have regional partnerships with mass media sources, so we send them information on regular basis about European integration, and we focus on storytelling, on best practices, on success cases. We have been doing much. We have been contributing much. I have checked our event schedule in Mykolaiv. We have today and tomorrow a big business workshop for business communities. So people tell us, visit us more often, and the one who wants to find, he will find when we deliver our workshops. Then we will have workshops in Rivne and Chernivtsi. Ukraine is the largest country in Europe, so we are very glad to plan workshops returning to our issue, our topic. I'm a sociologist, and we have been closely cooperating with so the picture should be looked at in a mid-term perspective. Before Maidan in the south of Ukraine, the majority did not support integration. Southern region started moving towards the EU. 35% of South population were for integration, 27-25 for customs union integration, the rest are neutral, as the figure remains almost the same from 2014. There are small differences between Kherson and Odessa. I told you why, because in one city we made more efforts so far. I'm not so skeptic. What is more interesting, in the same research of rating group after the events in this east, the number of supporters, NATO supporters in south has raised. The number of supporters to NATO now fell. The only explanation is that Russian propaganda became more commonplace, more intensive on Russian TV channels, which they can watch. In the southern region, perceptions differ from the eastern region, that they have medium-sized and small businesses, SMEs. On the first anniversary of the 2nd of May events, I was in Odessa. I asked a waiter in a restaurant about the events. Are you for separatists? I asked him. He said he did not support Maidan, but he said he didn't want to have war like it is in the East, because people having mid-size businesses, they saw what happened when Russian world was invited to the East. And the immunity is also high in Odessa region because they have successful farmers in the region. Many farmers, they told that first Crimean marketplace was lost, then Eastern marketplace was lost, then they started entering the EU marketplace, although there were some problems such as quotas, custom quotas, but they understood when they have EU certifications, they can export their goods even to Arab countries. So investing in farming grew in Nikolaev region. They have investment boom in agriculture. Those people, they understand that they export their goods to other regions, to other countries. The more trade will grow, the more this group of people covered will extend. They are a middle class, and they are the basis for democratic statehood. So I am optimistic. The second reason for my optimism is interpersonal contacts. They are growing. Visa-free visits number is high. On the first place is the Western Ukraine. On the second place, we see Southern Ukraine. So it was the right decision to restore, to revive Kherson Airport, low-cost Air Baltic. It flies to Odessa, so it is the matter of time when these routes will become used more, and all of us hope that soon the contract on open sky will be signed, and in southern Ukraine, attractiveness of southern Ukraine will grow. When there are good sites, opportunities for sites in tours, for example, Turkskaya Nova, so tourist flow will increase. The last thing I want to tell you, as we have Leo in this panel, there is a phenomenon such as Moldovan Syndrome. We know what happened with Moldovan government and 1 billion of stolen and embezzled money. So we hope that this case will not repeat in Ukraine. And now, what about local elites? This is important. We often see them when we travel around Ukraine, and they were previously for Yanukovych, now they are for Poroshenko, and they say that they have been visiting the EU, and I see that they want to spend money in the EU, but they do not want Ukraine have the same European standards, because this is a threat for their regime, for their power. In Mykolaiv, mayor is very pro-European person, so the situation has changed there. So where pro-European integration can so we'll look into the persons who go who visit Europe. They are from elite, but we do not have the same in transport, in waste management. People should go and visit EU, but not to believe into the programs broadcast on Russian TV. Thank you for your optimistic point.
Зазначити такі
So we may state that in Khersonsk airport, starting 2014-2017, the flow increased 30 times. So there is positive development, so we thank for your comments. And here I would like to ask Zoya Kazanzhy. She is a writer, communication expert in the project Communication of Europe in Ukraine. So I would like to ask her about Odessa. She represents Odessa here, and would you comment on this, please? So I would like to say one thing. Thank God that now they speak about Odessa and Kiev, because Kiev, these are just aliens. They are, I mean, institutions. They are focused on themselves, and for Kiev, Kiev is only of importance. And Zhmerenka, Odessa, and other cities, this is another planet for Kiev. And we saw it after 2nd of May, because Odessa was on the agenda only due to the anniversaries of this event, and then we spoke about Odessa. Several things I believe I should say. Yes? I do not know what is going on, what is happening in other region, but I know about Odessa and Odessa region, because we should speak not only about Odessa, but also about the whole Odessa region. This is a bright, diverse region. We should speak about it comprehensively. Several important things may be of interest to you. I worked in Odessa Oblast administration. I was a deputy head, and on the 6th of May, I took this post, and this was a cool experience. But when you have real power, you have the opportunity to do real things and influence the situation. I had access to information, I had resources, and I dealt with humanitarian bloc, and we spoke a lot with people, we communicated with them, and I support David in this. So when you start to work with the media and leaders of public opinion, we get attempts of understanding how people perceive their life. So I had a project. I worked 1 month with Saakashvili, then I left the administration, and I will say several things about it, but I had my own project. Maybe someone implements this project, and I speak about projects like this in order to provide ideas for others for implementation, in order to get loyalty to pro-European way. And together with Palitsa, we said that we should take 50 active elderly women and bring them to Europe to drink some coffee there and to communicate with them. So people should see those things. And there is influence of TV and influence of those who are close to you, who are of real importance to you. And also, for me, the most interesting audience are those who oppose the idea. One person actively opposes, this is a real thing, because they are not indifferent. And I like researches like this, and I agree with David that we should consider them and we should look at them closely while studying the processes that provided us with such figures. In 2009, I had negotiations with JFK, and in order to provide, to hold some surveys in Odessa. And I believe that there was a great survey. In 2014, the same thing. We ordered quantitative research, because when I joined the administration of this oblast, I wanted to know who are the opponents, who are the proponents of EU and Russia, and we ordered research, and then we got the research on Odessa and Odessa Oblast. So what are the fears of people, what they aspire, what they have on their mind? So, and also we asked to divide a city not according to the age, because this reminds me about the journals, the magazines for women. We are all really different. So we divided some traditionalists, Jadonists, modernists, because these are people of different age. And these are the groups we divided based on values, because values are important, because they played the role in Odessa in 2014. And in 2009, Juris looked at this, and what happened in 2015 when we got sociological data, and there was a serious scandal with Kolomoisky group, and Palitsa was discharged, and Saakashvili came to administration, and we paid $22,000 for this research, and they asked. Maybe it is too expensive, but I believe that we should have this information, and it was important to have this research, to use the data, but they didn't use the data. When someone asks me about Odessa, I say, I can send a report to you, but I do not know whether they use the data. When we are speaking about pro-Ukrainian Odessa, you know, some people are really surprised when someone in Odessa speaks Ukrainian. But young people speak Ukrainian in Odessa. They speak Ukrainian, Russian, English, and also parents, they want their children to learn Ukrainian at school, and also people also study Jewish language. So we may speak about the situation when people want a better future for their children, and we move slowly to Euro integration. We won't be a part of empire, and I can speak about it this endlessly. So several things that speak about pro-Ukrainian position of Odessa. Pro-Ukrainian in Odessa means pro-European in the majority of cases. So if people speak Russian, it doesn't mean that they support Russia and Putin. And for me, this was the revelation that there are people who speak Russian. They are pro-Russian in 2015, and there are people who are pro-Putin, and there are those who are Ukrainian nationalists. And so there are two facts from history. In 1918, Russian consulate was closed because city had said that this office is the disseminator of the propaganda. And in Odessa University in 1907, for the first time in Ukraine, they started to teach in Ukrainian, and we have a lot of excursions in our city in Ukrainian, and we restored the Ukrainian Club of Odessa, and we celebrated 100 years in 2008, and we laughed that this is the ghetto of Ukrainians in Odessa, but until 2013, we had 1,500 people in our hall when Shklyar and Guzar came. So there is pro-Ukrainian community that existed in 2013. It didn't appear later. So, and we spoke about SMEs because Maidan in Odessa was supported by SMEs, entrepreneurs who created their life despite the position of power. And in 2014, we should speak about it openly. Pragmatism was more important than patriotism. When I said about it, and I was really surprised. I liked the results of your research because in 2014 I said that we have only 20% of pro-Ukrainian people. We should not invent anything. We should understand that this is really good for Ukrainian and for in Odessa. So this result you have here, it is really good. So about clans, Odessa is the region like Donetsk, where the representatives of region's party always won. And there were a lot of resources for festivals of Russian press, and we had a quality channel at the TV that had an ideological component. It was difficult to oppose this ideology. And these financial clans, you know, that we have 108 TV channels, and most of them belong to serious guys. They are pragmatic. They understand what content they present, but they are mostly not pro-Ukrainian. There is no quality Ukrainian channel, only the channel provided by Syrian-born entrepreneur, Kivan. So we had a free university, and this free Ukrainian university, it was in the Jewish center for the money of Arab center. So you should understand the situation. And that's why we have quality site opinion. You may look at it. This is a niche product. And it is great that this topic is developing. Odessa has good prospects. In Odessa, there is a big community of sailors, and they may compare Ukraine and other countries, and they say that some people, there is a joke that so we have Transnistria near our region, and we want to Chisinau to get some goods. Sorry, but we have to continue. So we have great optimism, and we should continue, and we should provide the opportunity for elderly ladies to travel to Europe to understand the situation better. Thank you. So we may speak about Odessa endlessly. Do you have questions? Maybe we may take several questions. Thank you.
Oksana Lemishka, Center of Sustainable Development. Thank you for this discussion. I have two questions. The first is about methodology, how the respondents were selected, and if when we see this difference between the regions, how the all-national dialogue should be structured. This is a question to Ms. Zoya or to us, to you. JFK, we, based on our interviews with people in Odessa, our partners from the region helped us, people with different opinions, and we tried to cover the usual groups such as state authorities, representatives, journalists, businessmen, local deputies in rural areas, in Kherson and Odessa region, but the quality of our research is high. Interviews were in deep. We did not record them. As concerns how to communicate at the national level, I know for sure communication will save the world. We should discuss, we should organize many discussion platforms. The Nesta group, the Nesta team presented their strategy of sustainable development in Odessa, and large audiences were present, and anti-Maidan and Maidan groups in Odessa. We had communication with them before May 2nd and after May 2nd. If we do not create, we can't create anything if we do not understand, if we do not communicate. People do not understand what is happening to their lives and what to expect from tomorrow. So I have very many arguments. If I am in some shop, I always win in all discussions, in all rounds, but people say, why there are no programs telling this to us on TV channels? The authorities and the MPs should talk to people, discuss with them. School directors, when we invited them, they were like paralytics because they were afraid of us, but they said, oh, you give us coffee. So people were in fear, but instead of instructing, people should be communicated with. What to do at the national level? You should stick your country, glue it together and stitch it. Where you want to go, you should find out. With our project, in the scope of our project, we work in Mykolaiv, in Odessa. So we invited journalists to our workshops from all over Ukraine, to a workshop in Mykolaiv or in Odessa. So there we developed the vision what kind of Ukraine we want to see in the future. And without the EU, it is impossible. I'm telling this not because I am paid for. I am from Czech Republic, and me and the Latvian ambassador and Latvia, they had the chance to get convinced that the EU membership in the EU can resolve the problems. Then you will understand after the explanations that your future is there, but not in some other space. Thank you, Mr. Juris. Unfortunately, we are run out of time. So the discussion is so vibrant. We should organize more debates on this topic. Thank you to our esteemed guests, and we will see you on new events of New Europe Center.